If you feel the need to show off every success and crave the applause of others, listen to this story of a man whose blessings became his burden. In a lively town by the sea lived a merchant named Elias, who thought the world owed him a spotlight. Early morning light spilled through the narrow windows of Elias' shop, scattering golden dust across shelves heavy with exotic spices, shimmering silks, and polished trinkets. The salty breeze from the harbor brought with it the distant chatter of fishermen and the gentle clatter of crates being unloaded. Elias stood behind his counter, his sharp eyes scanning the faces of the first customers who wandered in, eager for a glimpse of the rare goods he had collected from distant lands. Every morning he moved with a steady rhythm. Count the coins, arrange the new arrivals, greet the merchants from other towns with a confident nod. There was pride in the way he spoke, a certain charm in his smile that drew people closer. Elias had built his life carefully, with sweat and sleepless nights, carving out a little kingdom of wealth and respect. The townsfolk saw him as a man who had made it, a symbol of what determination could bring. But beneath the surface of that proud exterior, Elias carried a deep unease, a hunger not for more riches but for recognition. It had always been this way, ever since he was a boy growing up in a modest home where whispers of success sounded rare and precious. As a young man, he had dreamed not just of comfort, but of applause, of friends and strangers alike turning their heads to admire him, to marvel at his accomplishments. "Look at this," he would say, lifting a dazzling gem or a fabled relic. "Only I have this in the entire region." His voice thrummed with certainty, yet with each boast there lingered a quiet tremor, as if his true worth balanced precariously on the weight of others' approval. His closest companion, a weathered old man named Tomas, who had known Elias since they were boys, often watched this with a weary smile. Tomas ran the small bakery just a street down, where the smell of fresh bread would curl out through open doors and into the crowded market lanes. One afternoon, as Elias carefully displayed an embroidered shawl with golden threads that caught the light like sunlight on water, Tomas named the truth so plainly it stung. "Elias," Tomas said quietly, "you don't measure what you have, only how many eyes see it." Elias laughed, brushing away the comment with a wave. "What's the point of holding blessings close to your chest? How can they shine if no one knows you have them?" It was a question Elias asked himself often, even on lonely nights when the house was quiet and shadows flitted behind closed doors. Was it true? Was the only measure of success the reverence of others? And so, day by day, Elias painted his life in broad, extravagant strokes. At the market, he would loudly recount his journeys to gather goods from faraway cities. "Just last moon," he'd say, "I bargained with traders in the shadowed alleys of Marrakesh, securing spices that will tingle your tongue like no other." His story drew a crowd, nodding heads and wide eyes. Elias felt the warmth rush inside him, a blaze of satisfaction. Yet the applause was never enough. The merchants who visited often exchanged glances and murmurs when Elias wasn't looking. "He shows off so much, but what of his heart?" whispered one. "Does he even find peace beneath the gold he flaunts?" wondered another. These questions hid behind polite smiles, but their meaning sank like stones into Elias' chest. At home, his family watched uneasily. His wife, Miriam, held her breath many evenings as Elias unveiled his latest treasure with a grand gesture, expecting admiration that felt hollow to her. "Elias," she whispered one night, "sometimes the world's eyes can blind us to what's truly ours." But Elias brushed her aside, caught in the whirl of his own making. "If they do not see, how can they respect?" He asked her with a softness that barely made it past the edge of his ambition. Months passed like waves washing onto the shore, each one bringing fresh spoils and louder stories. Yet a quiet loneliness wrapped tighter around Elias' shoulders. His nights were often restless, chasing shadows of doubt the fame and fortune never chased away. One evening, after a particularly lavish banquet where Elias had shown off his latest acquisition, an intricately carved jade box said to bring luck. The air filled with laughter and clinking glasses, But Elias felt a sharp pang he could not ignore. He caught himself watching a young boy sitting quietly at the edge of the room, eyes bright not with envy but a simple, curious wonder. The boy's joy in small things stirred something long buried within. Later, alone in his study, Elias sat by the flickering candlelight, the jade box gleaming beside him. A heavy silence settled as the echoes of the evening faded. His fingers traced the delicate carvings, but his mind was elsewhere, haunted by the thought that perhaps his blessings were too bright for his own peace. The days that followed were marked by small fractures in the armor of Elias' pride. His closest friends began to pull away, tired of constant boasting and weary of the spectacle. The market's hum seemed to dull. Even Miriam's gentle smile faltered as she watched Elias spiral quietly, torn between hunger for approval and a growing sense of emptiness. One afternoon, while Elias was arranging his shop, a stranger ambled in, eyes sharp yet calm. He was an elderly man, dressed in simple robes that looked out of place among the vibrant market colors. There was something in his measured steps and steady presence that made the room hush. Elias felt it like a tap on his soul. The old man greeted him with a nod. "Greetings, merchant," he said, voice warm yet firm as oak. "I have heard of your treasures and many blessings you hold." Elias smiled, pride flaring bright again. "Welcome, friend. I have many wonders to share. See what the world brings to those who seek." The stranger's gaze drifted across the shelves, pausing on the jade box, the silks, the spices. Then he turned those penetrating eyes back to Elias. "But tell me," he said slowly, "do all these blessings serve you or do you serve them?" Elias blinked, caught off guard as if the words had echoed from his own heart. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice low and uncertain. The old man took a step closer, folding his hands and leaning in like a breeze barely rustling the parchment of a sacred scroll. "Sometimes the brightest light casts the darkest shadow. What if your need to display your blessings is a prison disguised as a crown?" The room seemed to still, the summer heat fading as a chill crept into Elias' bones. He felt the weight of a question he had long avoided, a truth poised to unravel the carefully constructed world he had built. Elias' hands trembled slightly as he reached for a cup of water, the coolness grounding him in a way silence could not. He looked back at the merchant's treasures surrounding him, symbols of success, yes, but also tokens of a lonely journey. "I don't know," he whispered. "I only know that if no one sees them, they might as well not exist." The old man smiled gently, a spark of understanding in his eyes. "Then perhaps you need to see them yourself, not through the eyes of others." At that moment, something in Elias shifted, a crack in the armor, a glimpse of something new and unknown. The old man reached out, as if offering more than just words. "Come with me, Elias. Meet someone who once carried a similar burden. Someone who learned what it truly means to keep blessings close." Elias hesitated. The thought of letting go of his armor was terrifying, like stepping into a deep, dark sea without knowing if he could swim. But within him, a quiet whisper grew louder, one that begged for something more than empty applause. "I will come," he said at last, voice steady though the storm inside him raged. The stranger nodded, pleased. "Good. The road ahead will not be easy, but it will be worth every step." As Elias followed the old man out into the fading light. Of evening, the town's lights flickered on one by one, distant stars mirroring the uncertain sparks within him. For the first time in many moons, Elias was not trying to shine for others. He was seeking a light that belonged to him alone. And so began a journey far beyond fine silks and jeweled treasures, into the heart of blessings kept quietly, where something far greater waited to be found. The old man looked at Elias, eyes calm yet full of promise, and began, "Once upon a time." "Once upon a time," the old man began, his voice gentle like the sea breeze that whispered through the market, "there was a tree that grew at the edge of a village. It was not the tallest or the grandest tree, but it was special to the people. Every year, when the fruit ripened, the villagers would come to admire it and praise its bounty aloud. The tree's branches bowed low under the weight of its success, spilling bright red apples into the hands of many. Elias leaned closer, his curiosity lighting a quiet spark in his eyes. But the old man continued. There was one thing the village did not know. The tree kept its sweetest fruit hidden deep within its thickest branches. It showed the villagers only those fruits that gleamed from afar, easy to see, easy to boast about. It wanted to be admired after all. The old man's eyes sparkled as he told the story. One season, a fierce storm came. The wind howled like a wild beast, shaking the village and the tree. The tree bent under the tempest's fury, dropping much of its fruit for all to see. Yet the sweetest fruits remained, concealed in the shadow of its inner branches. After the storm passed, the elder said softly, the villagers were surprised to see fewer apples hanging outside. They whispered about the tree's loss, doubting its greatness. But the tree, steady and calm, kept growing quietly from within. Seasons later, when the wind calmed, the hidden fruits thrived and ripened, sweeter than ever before, carried by the wind to places the villagers never dreamed of reaching. The old man turned his gaze slowly back to Elias, who sat silent, the flickering candlelight now casting shadows that danced like restless thoughts. This tree, the old man said firmly, is like your blessings, Elias. You offer the fruits of your success to the world, bright, visible, loud. But in doing so, you tire and bend beneath the weight of applause. What if your greatest blessings are those you keep close, nourished quietly, without the need for acclaim? What if the peace you seek lies not in being seen, but in truly knowing your worth? Elias swallowed, feeling the weight of truth settle in his chest like a long-forgotten seed finding fertile soil. The old man smiled kindly and said, now you must decide. Will you chase the fleeting light of others' eyes or tend what grows in the calm of your own heart? For a long moment, Elias sat in thick silence. Then, as if a veil lifted, tears welled in his eyes. I understand now, he whispered, voice trembling yet clearer than before. I've been giving away my joy to be held up by others. But real strength, real blessing, it comes from within. His voice cracked, not from weakness but from the release of a burden long carried alone. The old man nodded and stepped back. Then your journey begins, Elias, not to show the world your treasures but to embrace them yourself. The next morning, Elias woke long before dawn. The world outside his window was still cloaked in gray hush. For the first time in many seasons, he did not reach for the rare goods on his shelf to prepare a grand display. Instead, he took a worn notebook from his drawer and with steady hand began to write, not to boast but to understand. His first action was simple. He wrote down 3 things from that day he was truly thankful for, things no one but he would ever see or know about. A smile crept over his face, faint but genuine. Still, old habits clung like stubborn shadows. When he walked through the market, the urge to tell grand tales pressed beneath his ribs. The tongues of gossip and the glances that once felt like warmth now felt like chains. That night, he wrestled with himself, lonely, vulnerable, craving validation, yet afraid of falling back into old patterns. Days became weeks. Slowly, Elias began to practice silence where once there had been noise. He tended to his shop with humility, greeting customers with honest smiles instead of rehearsed stories. He listened more deeply and boasted less. He found joy in simple exchanges, laughing with the fishmonger, sharing quiet moments with Miriam as they watched their children play, savoring the new sweetness of small things. Friends noticed the change. Tomas, the baker, stopped by more often. "You're lighter," Tomas said one afternoon, handing him fresh bread, not weighed down by the need to shine. Elias nodded, heart swelling with a quiet gratitude. But the path was not without its stumbles. One evening, after a difficult day when no customers lingered, Elias felt the old hunger gnawing at his resolve. The empty shop seemed to mock his silence. The world outside buzzed with achievements shouted aloud. That night, temptation knocked hard. "Just one story," it whispered. "Just one glance of admiration. It won't hurt." Exhausted, Elias almost gave in. Then he remembered the tree, the one that bent but held its finest fruit safe. He remembered the old man's eyes full of wisdom. He remembered the tears that had freed him. "No," Elias said firmly in the quiet. "This is mine, my blessing, my peace." The next morning, he opened his doors with a new purpose. Word spread not of his grand treasures, but of his changed heart. Customers came not to be dazzled, but to be understood. Miriam smiled with unshed tears. Tomas shook his head, smiling at the quiet miracle unfolding. Months passed. Elias found a new rhythm, one of balance between success and silence, pride and humility. One day at the market square, a young boy approached him. "Why don't you tell stories like before?" the boy asked, curiosity clear in his voice. Elias looked into the boy's eyes. "Because some blessings shine best when they're kept close," he said softly, "and some lights grow deeper when they don't need to be seen by all." That day, something changed not only for Elias but for the entire village. His story, once one of loud prosperity, became one of quiet strength. People began to look beyond the surface of shining things and appreciate the hidden wonders in their own lives. Years later, when asked about his secret, Elias always said with a gentle smile, "I learned that blessings aren't meant to dazzle the eyes of the world. Sometimes the greatest gift is to hold them quietly, letting them grow strong inside, because true peace doesn't seek applause. It simply shines." And so Elias discovered that the weight he carried was never his blessings, but the need to show them off. True wealth is found in acceptance, not applause. This story shows us that the greatest blessing is not what we share with the world, but what we nurture within ourselves. And you? How many times have you felt the need to prove your worth to others? How often have you chased their approval, forgetting that your true value lives quietly inside? How many blessings have you displayed to be seen, rather than embraced in peace? As Elias learned, the light you seek does not need to be a spotlight blinding everyone around you. Sometimes the most profound light comes from the calm you find when you stop performing for others and start living for yourself. You don't need to shout your success or parade your blessings today. Start small. Tomorrow, pause and name one thing you hold dear that no one else needs to see. Cherish it quietly. And over time, that quiet light will grow stronger than any applause. Now I ask you, if this story touched something inside you, if these words awaken a hope or a question, don't let that feeling fade. Starting today, you can choose to cherish your blessings without needing to show them off. You can bring your worth back home to yourself. In the comments, write this: "My quiet blessing." Just 2 words. Share what you hold in your heart just for you. Like this video if you're ready to stop chasing applause and start embracing your true worth.